And thank you for staying with us on Citizen Extra. I am Anne Kiguta. I want to just catch up with a bit of more news that is taking place. As we mentioned earlier, that Raila Odinga, who is the NASA presidential flag bearer, is meeting with persons with disabilities here in Nairobi at the Railways Club in Nairobi. This, of course, being a key meeting for him because, you know, showing inclusivity of all Kenyans of all walks of life. So he'll be expected there, and we should hopefully have this for you, this event for you live very shortly.
Awili consider these people. Atapitaje pale kule 10th floor. Hakuna ramp. Hakuna lift. Kuna lift zingine enda pale city annex. We lift itaweza goma anytime. Enda city annex. I'm not saying what I've not seen. Sasa mlemavu anaingia na wheelchair yake. Lift imekwama katikati. Just look at the situation. It is embarrassing. Please identify. Let us.
All right, and so we'll be following that up for you very shortly. Staying with us in studio is Cynthia Mutere and Vincent Kimosop. They're both governance analysts, and joining us this hour is Joy Mudivo. Joy, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So we were talking, of course, about President Uhuru Kenyatta's vote hunt in Gusii and Nyamira. Of course, he'll be in Nyamira later today. He was in Gusii yesterday. Let's switch to the politics of the issues. And Joy, I'll begin with you. Do you believe, first of all, that these two counties are swing counties? And what do you believe Jubilee's chances are in the next 9 weeks?
I don't think they're swing counties, because over the last about 3-4 years, we've seen a deliberate attempt by the Jubilee government to sort of woo this particular community. Remember the infamous statement how he gave them a chief justice from that community. We've seen people like C.S. Matiang'i, Nyachai being given prominent positions and being fronted as the Jubilee luminaries in this area. However, we have not seen a warming up of the community, for example, to these overtures. And as it stands, I think Jubilee as as a party in this area is not as popular as you would expect. One of the problems that I think has come out is the elitism of the people who have been fronted. For example, someone like C.S. Matiang'i is very good with policy, but he doesn't seem to endear himself to the general populace. Somebody like Honorable Nyachai, people are saying this is sort of like a carrying on of the dynasty of his family, and they're thinking, okay, it's time for somebody else from another family to be prominent in this area. So even with these things that are coming out, for example, the money that's being set aside for the IDPs, I mean, this is coming so little, so late, after all the others have been. So people are alive to the fact that these overtures are purely for expediency, it's purely for the politics, and it's not necessarily because the government has a particular strategy about improving the lives of the people in this area. So even as the president is going out on his charm offensive, if it has any effect, in my opinion, it will be very marginal, to be very nominal. And all along you've seen the people of that region being very, they stand on their own with for people. They can support a particular candidate, but they are very much their own person. So I don't expect that this is going to be a swing vote in any way. Some few votes will come their way, but I don't see it changing the fortunes of Jubilee in Gusii. Not
so
at all.
when you hear they're eyeing 30%, what do you think?
Pardon?
When you hear them saying, you know, they're eyeing 30% of the total vote,
it's not going to happen. If they are able to get maybe about 15%, I would be very impressed. Because, you know, Kenyans have become very clever. When you come a little bit later and you're coming with these goodies and saying, this is for the IDPs, they're thinking, just because the IDPs in our area became integrated, it was sort of ignored. People don't take kindly to the realization that you think we are so gullible as to fall for a goodie that is coming 60 days to the general election. So I don't see them getting the 30%. If they get 10-15% of the vote, that would be very fortunate in my opinion. And that one I think we'll even do the math after the election.
And I think if you could allow me just to add something.
Go ahead, Vincent.
I think I see it a little bit different, and this is how I see it. I look at it from the Gusii community, from the prism of the politics of Mwai Kibaki in 2007, that when he was campaigning. When you look at the Gusii community, these are business people. These are people who have, because of economic, the population together with the land size in that area, they've actually gone to do business. And you can even see it in Nairobi. They have taken over some of the routes, matatu. Now, people who are in business will always do business where their interests are. So what is actually likely to happen is that, yes, it is a fact that NASA is ahead in Gusii, but what is going to happen is what they did in 2007 during the Grand Coalition government. If you look at the number of votes and the influence they had under the Kibaki's administration, particularly in the Grand Coalition government, that they are actually a smart community. So what did they do? They actually split their sons. And you know, they say a bird cannot fly with one wing. And you hunt with this is a direct translation in my mother tongue. You hunt with your right hand and with your left hand, and then you take everything home. What did they do? They divided their troops. You had one that was led by Ongeri, and then you had another one led by Chris Obure in ODM. Ongeri was in PNU. You could actually see the impact that even Ongeri had a seat during the negotiation of the Grand Coalition government. Now, that was that is smart politics for that community. So, what I'm actually going to see in this situation, Anne, is that yes, ODM is ahead. And NASA, of course, in this situation, in the Gusii land. But what is going to happen is that they will take an insurance cover in Jubilee. So that 30% is likely to be a possibility because, you know, they are in business. If you remember the Grand Coalition government, they would go to Kibaki and say, give us our share, we supported you, Mwai Kibaki. And then what do? Then they move to ODM in 2007, give us also a share. The impact on the ground is that we have Suneka airstrip. You can actually see that. Look at even in the current framework. Chris Obure was strong in ODM. They had Fred Matiang'i. Even, okay, I know this is not right to say, but we have to have courage to say politically, the political significance of the office of the CJ, that was even exposed by the president. So in my view, Joy, I think I would say that, yes, NASA is ahead in Gusii, but because it's a business community, they will not put all their, they will not test the depth of the feet by both their feet. I think
and you have a wager.
Fine, I'll be ready to have.
You have a wager here, Anne. So after the elections, we will see. Is it the 15% or the 30%? Right. So we'll come back and tell you.
And whoever loses, or rather, should I say, whether you win or lose, you're buying me coffee. There you go.
That's for sure. All right. That's for sure.
All right. Cynthia, let's come to you because we talked about some of the faces of this campaign, at least in the Jubilee race, and the very, is it very prominent, but a significant crossing of Chris Obure to the Jubilee side. Of course, is going for the gubernatorial seat and hoping to have his seat taken by Charles Nyachaya, and then there's also Stephen Manoti of, I think, Bobasi, is it? What do you think their chances are going into this election to give Jubilee Party it would be its first electoral seats, wouldn't it be?
If the deputy governor of Gusii's actions of retreating very quickly is anything to go by, then their chances are minimal, because then that just solidifies the place to be a NASA stronghold, because these are the people who are the local leaders who then mobilize the people. And when you go out and you sit with the people, as the deputy governor did, and he tried to venture into Jubilee, I think he was then advised to just get back and let's just fight it out in NASA. And so for the Obures and all who are in Jubilee and trying to mobilize for Jubilee, I think the word on the ground is kula kwa Jubilee, kura kwa NASA. And basically that's the way it's going to be.
Okay. Did you guys agree to come up with these sayings on this show?
We want to run the show.
We'll invite you again.
We want to connect with the people, Anne. I think
the people, I know
about the stomach and all about the livelihood and all about what can we put on our table.
Right.
So it's all then, if they're going to do these quick fixes, then let's just take advantage of it as well. We're not that foolish. Let's take the 358 million in our bags, and we are still going to vote now.
All right. Now, listen to some of what the president had to say, and this really being a controversial topic, because you heard yesterday, was it, the opposition accusing state agents of having a hand in the killing of a Mumias Sugar Company official, the legal officer Ronald Lubia, because he allegedly opposed plans to use the miller in illegal sugar imports, and the president took exception to that yesterday, accusing the opposition, quote, of turning the death into a political issue and starting to going around the country issuing threats. The quote continues, let them come forward and tell us what they know about the killing, end quote. Joy, let's start with you. This is not the first time that we're hearing the opposition, you know, attributing some of these high-profile deaths to a state hand. We heard the same sort of agitations by the opposition when Jacob Juma, who was a prominent businessman come politician, was killed, and we still don't know who was behind his killing, but we heard the opposition then make similar threats. Was the president justified in taking it out on them and saying these are unsubstantiated and amount to threats?
First, let me start by giving my condolences to the family, because this comes as a legal fraternity. This is a very worrying situation, because it comes barely a week to when we are starting to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the death of Willie Kimani, who died in the course of duty. And it's been a worrying trend where people who are in professional service find themselves in the crossfires of things that really shouldn't be a personal attack on them. But now, moving to your question, one of the things that I think is right that the president did was in calling out the opposition and telling them, look, everything cannot just be blamed on the government for the sake of being blamed of the government. When he said Jacob Juma, there was some basis. There was the beef before, there was the Twitter war. You could see that there was a background to the situation. In the case of the legal officer from Mumias, there was absolutely nothing. None of us even knew anything about these sugar deals. We are hearing the allegations now. So it's one of those situations where it's a very unfortunate situation, but where the murder happens to be in a NASA zone. And I would imagine that the NASA leaders would think this is something that would behove them or would endear them to their voters to try and make political capital of it. But the president is right in saying, look, if you know something, let us know. Let us investigate. Because, quite frankly, from where I stand, if I look at it as an outsider, this looks like a deal gone wrong, that something now happened and somebody was agitated and ended up commissioning the murder. I doubt the government would want to dirty their fingers with a murder at this point in time, with 60 days to the elections. It's too clumsy. It's one of those things that's too amateurish. And so, in calling out the NASA leaders, it's like, say, look, let this matter take the course it's supposed to take. If you really know something, then we come out and say it, but don't play politics with such an unfortunate situation. That's my reading to it. And on that score, I think the president made the right call in saying, look, I'm calling your bluff on this. I won't let it go unchallenged.
All right, Cynthia.
One of the key things about campaigning is to really whip up emotions, and the more you whip up emotions to your side is the way you're going to win the vote and hopefully sustain it up to the day of voting. Remember, just this past weekend on Saturday, June the 3rd, NASA launched the presidential campaign, which was launched in Kakamega. In that meeting, one of the Pentagonians, Musalia Mudavadi, actually made now those allegations, saying that the legal officer now had been asked to give some money, and this has been going around because now when the Jubilee or the president last visited, of course when you're coming into Western, the agricultural region of this country producing sugar, then you want to be speaking to the economy. And so what was really a hot topic was now the sugar industry and how now that could be revived. And of course Mumias has fallen, and the politics around that is really sad, and this is being attributed especially to bad politics, and the region has of course now been the victim of of some of the things and the policies that.
But Cynthia, even by what you're saying, isn't it even an easier conclusion to draw that this has everything to do with sugar barons before you even talk about reviving
all that is
the sugar
industry? But then you see what came up really just as a political statement was that now Mumias they were going to pump in money into Mumias, but then that money was going to now be channeled into Jubilee campaigns in Western region. Now that's what came out in the NASA rally, and that's what's been on social media. But of course the chairman of Mumias has come out very strongly and written a letter and said that all those allegations are false. There was no meeting at Intercontinental, because basically that's the genesis of the whole story, that there was a meeting where they agreed that monies would be coming into Mumias and some money then would be given to a member of parliament, the member of parliament for Mumias East, Benwa Shiale, who then would now spearhead Jubilee campaigns in the region. And that of course now it was touching on these offices.
Yeah,
and
but
so
you know, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Of course then the president is saying it's not allegations. If there's some truth in these allegations, then take them to the relevant authorities instead of just speaking them. But I'm talking about emotions. When you have the emotional thing, and as Joyce said, that you knew Jacob Juma from his Twitter contributions and as a businessman in this country, then there is background to such things. But then of course no one is going to be interrogating this. You're just throwing it out to the public and ripping up to the emotions in the region, telling them that we are being victimized. Our people who are trying to make headway and are not towing the line to Jubilee then are being eliminated. And when you whip up such
and is that responsible?
It is dangerous, of course. I'm not saying that
I think and we have
let's allow Cynthia to conclude her point, because I suppose the bottom line is whether that is those are responsible statements coming from the opposition.
How can then leaders be held accountable to these utterances? Because then this looks like a political murder, and what can be done about it? Can you hold then Mudavadi accountable to saying those statements and then hot on the heels, this person then is murdered? And is there a link? Is there a link, and what can we do about it?
Vincent, let's move from that, because I think we can all agree those are irresponsible statements to make without hard evidence, and especially this close to an election. So I want to even move forward and go past whether that is responsible or not, to say. The question that Cynthia has posed in her response is really the issue. How do you hold political leaders at this time responsible for the things that they are saying this close to an election, knowing full well that if we saw images of Musalia Budawadi being required to record a statement before the police regarding this issue, then the next thing that we'll hear from the opposition is that they're being allegedly victimized, or state agencies, are trying to muzzle them, etc., ahead of a campaign. What is the responsible way to deal with this? Holding political leaders accountable, but yet being very sensitive to the heightened political period in which we are.
Anne, I think if you just let's use proxy indicators to be able to answer that question, and I will look at the issue of the fight against corruption in our country. We have two types of corruption: administrative corruption, that is the procurement related, and then we also have political corruption. If you see the bribery that is given, the buying off even competitors. Now, if you remember when PLO Lumumba was the chair of the EACC, at that time he actually had they were working on administrative corruption. You saw the names that came out of people in bureaucracy. But when the day he started addressing political corruption, all of them closed ranks. So I can tell you very clearly that the current framework, both legally and institutionally, has not been able to actually facilitate a clear accountability on the political class. Anytime you touch the political class, and you've been in the media for some time, they all close ranks because they are one of a kind. And I can actually tell you, there is been in civil society in 2000, and when we had a new CJ, a prominent political individual said that if civil society succeeds in getting their CJ, and of course I think at that time we referring to CJ Mutunga, we will also make sure that we get our own in the criminal justice system. And I can tell you, I now not use this platform to share more, is actually they got their way, and that's why you can see there is no conviction of anyone in the political class until. Why? Because when you touch them, they close ranks and they're able to fight off. They actually, if you saw what they did on EACC, they removed the entire commission, even, and I am not sure even...
Are you saying there's no way to hold them accountable?
As we are currently, if you just look at, when you throw in politics into a process, either political or economic, it looks like we have not been able to build the kind of institutions as we see in the West that is able to hold anyone accountable irrespective of their political position. Look at Donald Trump, a president of US. He is actually, even Bill Clinton, he was brought before as in a committee of the legislature. Our institutions, and I will be honest with you, not that have not been before, that we have not been able to build the courage, the kind of courage and confidence that can be able to hold politicians accountable. A very good example before us, look at the IEBC. You don't see them really leaving one of the independent part of their full meaning of the why? Because political pressure has been put on them. So that is the reality, and we have to live with it for now.
Joy, should the opposition be held responsible for these statements, and if so, can it be done?
Indeed, they should, but the second part of your question is the devil is in the detail. Can they? No, I don't think they can. What we have in Kenya is a very bad legislative culture. We write a law, but inside the law, we work out the loophole. We've seen it time and time again. When the noose starts becoming tight, you find the little loophole and you pull the string and it unravels, and the noose is let loose. Let me use the example of our constitution. We gave ourselves a constitution and we put in there chapter 6. Oh, integrity, and we're all like, oh yes, brilliant, this is what we need. But then we also put the article 99 that says, if you have any allegations against your personality, then the matter must be tried in a court of law, and you must have the appeals done and any tribunals done. Once all the channels that are available for appeal are exhausted, that is when you can be held to not have integrity enough to stand for public office. Now, any common sense will tell you, if I am still in office and these allegations are against me and I have to go through a trial and appeal and all that, I will use my office to ensure that the outcome is favorable to me, which is what we've seen happening to good effect. Before even the constitution came in place, we saw it with Saitoti when we were going through the Golden Bag cases. You get to a place where you actually have a court of law to declare that anything that mentioned your name adversely should be expunged from the record. I mean, in Kenya, we have gotten to a place where the ones responsible to make the law for their own expediency, for their own survival. And I agree with Vincent. They work it out that the political class can be able to maintain a certain lifestyle in a certain way. What we need in Kenya is a certain caliber of leaders to arise who will be courageous enough to write laws that even if it works against me, that's fine. Because that's where the devil is. All the time we work out a law in order to fail us. Now, coming to the opposition, can they be held responsible? With 60 days to the election, as Vincent correctly pointed out, any action to try and hold somebody accountable will be interpreted as political witch hunt. We've seen even the overtures with the president, the little fights they've been having with the governor of Mombasa.
Right.
Every once in a while when something happens, anything is construed to be, by the way, this is irresponsible, this is building Johor, this is doing... So we've gotten to a place where no one has the courage to do their job. The IBC does not have the courage. The judiciary does not have the courage. And they don't have the tools. The DPP does not have the courage. The members of parliament are driven by selfishness and greedy gain. We've gotten to a place where we actually need a Moses. We need salvation.
And allow me to say, remember the Supreme Court,
right,
in its finding found a senior politician to have actually violated an electoral law. As in, what more do you, as in, beyond the Supreme Court? If you look at even the, and so that we are objective and analyze. This is that was on the part of the minority. Now, even in the what is it, the current establishment, you've seen people who've been cleared for offices, for governor, women rep, accountability reports actually are questioning their very integrity. They have been cleared to run. What is it going to happen? And they are getting a license, an insurance cover. Sorry, I don't know if maybe maybe insurance might not be the right term, because we need to respect the integrity of that sector, that when they get to office. So for me, I think if we really want to have a better country, we have to ask ourselves, how do we grow? What Barack Obama tells us, that Africa does not need strong people, we need strong institutions. And if we are all equal before the law, and I can tell you, no one can convince me across the divide that actually that is the direction where we are headed.
Right. Cynthia, let me come to you, because you've heard that very bleak, analysis of what is going on. But whereas we're talking about the opposition being held responsible for statements like that, at the same time there needs to be justice for the families of Jacob Juma, the lawyer that was mentioned, and I beg your pardon, I've just forgotten his name. The Joy, you mentioned a certain legal officer. Kimani, yes, exactly. And of course this very latest death of Lubia. What are your own thoughts in terms of our justice system and accountability, and what is the way forward?
I was listening to the DPP actually making his contributions some couple of 2-3 weeks ago, when he was sitting at the Senate committee that had summoned Governor Oparanya to appear before him, and he was really saying that if this committee then has powers to summon, then it should have powers to actually now issue a warrant of arrest to actually make someone come in. And this is what we need to give our institutions: teeth. They really need teeth. There is an act from this whole chapter 6 that I don't think has teeth. What the legislators, I think, in this 11th Parliament has done is actually really just looked on their side and not given chapter 6 enough teeth to bring people to book. And that's what we need, that chapter 6 to really actually be able to for the institution, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, to be able to issue warrants of arrest people, actually take cases to the DPP with evidences that can be held in a court of law to prosecute this person and hold them accountable. And so that's what we really need, that the legislators really need to put this legislation in place.
And when you hear people say that it's the laws are there, the challenge is the individuals who are, and the political will to ensure that whatever framework is there actually works. What do you think of that argument?
It needs to be actually written down, because what we see then is the whole merry-go-round, where then Ethics and Anti-Corruption takes it to IBC. IBC says we're going to be having a look at it. We're not sure if these people really have passed the threshold, and we need to really put it back to you. And so we'll take it to NCIC. NCIC says they're going to take it to, and so we're having the whole run around with where does the buck stop really? And there are so many laws that are not implementable.
I think Cynthia, we do not need more laws. In my view, if we are a country with a lot of laws and policies, I am saying this having had an institution that was advocating for good laws and policies. If we only implement even a third of the laws that we would want, just imagine chapter 6 of the Constitution, the principles of leadership and integrity, that says that public officers ought to conduct themselves in private and in public in a manner that brings honor and dignity to the office. Look at even the kind of insults that we see in public square. Look at, as in, you do not need a lot of laws. What we need, Cynthia, in my view, is a new political and a culture to be brought.
A culture of respect. Enforcement, and enforcement in a way that you can actually now pick up an article like that and hold someone accountable.
No, but Cynthia, me and you here,
because chapter 6 is really the aspirations of the Kenya. This is what we wanted. We wanted to see leadership that has all these qualifications. Then we put it in the Constitution for the legislators now to take it a notch higher, to actually now put teeth to now these aspirations of what the Kenyans wanted.
If you read the first, since I was in this process, on the first draft bill on leadership and integrity during the stakeholders engagement, we actually even had close to 29 types of as in things that are deemed to be corruption. Influence peddling, selling, even as in selling influence, tenderpreneur, all that. They were all removed. When the legislation go to the floor of Parliament. The reality, actually, for me, in this context, and is becoming emotional here. The challenge is, if we do not have that, and we actually are going round. You see, I'm happy currently people are talking about going from Egypt, going to Canaan. Some of us who are scholars in the Word of God, there is a place the children of Israel went round a mountain for a long time until they were told, you have gone round this mountain.
You cross the Jordan.
You can cross. The reality of it is that this is a place where we've been for quite some time, and if we there is now, and that is really what the country is headed. Look at, if you want to even see statistics, and the IPSO sign of it, the two polls that have been done says that 60% of Kenyans say country is not headed in the right direction. Currently it went to 70, but you realize, you notice the incumbent is still ahead. Why? Meaning that there's something more inspiring has not come into the fore, and really one of them is stronger leadership.
Yeah, but you know, Joy said we need a Moses, and I'm beginning to think, Joy, if you know this Moses, we might invite him on the show. Okay, I'll hold your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much, Vincent Kimosop, for being with us this hour. Very shortly, Charles Kipule will be joining us on our panel as we continue to talk politics. We're taking a short break on Citizen Extra. We're back with more after this.